Alright, my stream should be up here in a moment. And I have all your Twitters right, I hope. If you guys make sure I have your Twitters fucking right.
Yeah, my Twitter same as my Twitch.
Okay. Yeah, I just put images of all of us and then I put your guys' Twitters underneath.
Perfect. I just got my intros music blasting right now, so I can't really respond to anything yet.
That's fine. Alright. What's up, everybody? Hopefully you guys can hear us. If you're on stream, if you're in stream chat, if you're in Ruff's chat, if you're in my chat, please let me know that you guys can hear everybody. I guess we'll do some introductions first. You guys can go ahead and introduce yourselves, and then I'll go ahead.
Well, for those of you who don't know, I am Ruff, aka Jesse Hall. I do all the crazy kind of builds. It doesn't matter what it is. I just build stuff.
Alright. Next, go ahead. Either one of you guys.
I think a lot of...
I'll take a stab at it. My name is PvP, Gosu_PvP for those of you guys who don't know me. I'm not a GM, I'm a tier 1 Master Protoss. I've been playing this game for, since release. I have a really macro-oriented style, so I really like to look at the long-term effects of these units and the changes and throughout the game, I should say. That's going to be my emphasis today for sure. And that's basically it, guys. I'm just a Protoss, a little biased Protoss.
Awesome.
And lastly, I'm Neuro. I trained in the Chinese mountains with Avilo for 15 years with various forms of Kung Fu, and now I stream StarCraft. I try to bring extra emphasis on improving your mentality, dealing with losses, and focusing on how to be a better player and all that cool shit.
Amazing.
Alright, so, hopefully everybody just, you guys can hear us, right? And yes, I know, we all know this is during Home Story Cup, guys. This is the first episode. The whole goal of this show is going to be to talk about, discuss balance changes, patch changes, anything to do with the game and focus on the gameplay. So, we'll see what we get for viewers. That's all well and good. Next week, I'll probably have you guys on if you want to come back as recurring guests or whatnot, and we'll talk about, because the patch comes out on Tuesday on the 22nd, so we'll see. Everyone will play games between then, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about what has happened with the patch and, if our predictions and stuff were correct or not. So, alright guys, the format, I'm basically just going to be throwing out topics and then we're going to go at them. We can argue, go ham, debate about them, whatnot. So, first thing I want to bring up is, the new patch changes. Oh, just in general, what do you guys think about, the direction of the new patch changes? Do you think, Blizzard's moving in the right direction for all three races? So what are, each of you guys' general thoughts about all of the new changes just overall for the game? I guess, Ruff can go
in my
first.
opinion, well, I don't know much about how CVP would be affected, but for TVZ and TVP, I believe that TVP will be a little bit easier, provided you can get rid of the Sentry's Guardian Shield somehow, whether it's like an EMP or something, by using Cyclones. I feel like that's going to be pretty powerful in the early game. The Tempest, on the other hand, once it gets to the late game, will become a problem. So if you don't have battle cruisers by that point, everything on the ground is going to get immobilized and then stormed and then dead, because it's just a 7-second AoE time stop ability that's like a stasis, but you can still attack units. And I think that's a little OP, in my opinion. But I feel like the Reactor Cyclone is going to be very powerful versus Protoss. Zerg, on the other hand, with how much anti-air has been nerfed for Terran with the Cyclone and the Liberator and I don't even count the frickin' .1 Thor change. That doesn't really make sense. Wow, I can hit 2 mutas now if they magic box. Ooh, you know, it's like whatever. I feel like that matchup is going to be very difficult. It's changing both bio and mech. The mobile mech is gone because the Cyclone is slower now, so you can't do like Cyclone, Hellion Liberator. That's what I've been messing around with. You're going to have to do straight up mech now. And if you try to do that, you're going to have problems versus, like I said, with the anti-air now because the Cyclone doesn't shoot up in the Liberator with the mutas. Another thing is the bio is changed because primarily the baneling. With the baneling having more HP, it means that Marines have to do more damage to it. Let's pretend that you get siege tanks because siege tanks do more damage now. Let's say they get that baneling ability and you don't have +1 on your tanks. Your tanks won't kill the banelings in one hit. You know, it's going to take 2 hits now. So it's definitely a crutch in both areas. So that's just my take on it. TVZ is going to be very difficult. TVP is going to be probably a lot easier for timings and stuff. And it's basically like, I want to say like, the roles are going to be reversed. The timings are usually what killed Zerg. The late game was OP. Now it's Protoss like that. The timings are going to kill Protoss, but if they get to the late game, it's going to be OP. But yeah, that's just my opinion. That's what I see.
So you mostly think because the Cyclone is going to help like early game against Protoss, right?
Yeah, it will help early game because you can make like 1 Widow Mine, 1 Cyclone. You know, you'll have a really good defense versus like Stalker and like an Oracle if it comes, you know.
Okay.
So you can see you can go into the macro game a lot easier with Terran now instead of getting cheese. Like Protoss cheeses are gonna be a lot harder to execute with the way the game's designed now.
All right. Let's go ahead and have Neuro, just your general thoughts. We'll go through each person's just general thoughts, and then after that, we can, you know, start jumping in, and we'll discuss other things as well. So go ahead, Neuro.
Sounds good.
So to give some perspective on what Blizzard has been trying to do with Legacy of the Void, mainly they're looking to equalize unit diversity, where there's as close to equal chance for players to make the various unit compositions as possible. And it's kind of the responsibility of the players of the game to abuse whatever is the most OP at any given time. So like the double Medivac stim drop, we saw that so much this season to the point where it kind of becomes boring. 3 Racks Reaper, we see it so much to the point that it becomes boring. So they see these things that are used the most and they try to buff what's used the least. So leading into this new patch, it's probably going to be pretty imbalanced. Like some of the stuff may stand out too much. Some things may be complete shit, but then they're going to have some time to adjust that before the real action starts at the beginning of next year. So I'm pretty excited to see how things pan out and what strategies are discovered. For Zerg's POV against Terran, it kind of felt like Roach Hydra Viper was no longer an option against Bio in Legacy of the Void, just because of how the tempo of the matchup worked, how Liberators work. But with the Hydra buff, maybe that'll be good. And they did change the Hydra transition from being just the Hydra's buffed in general with 1 upgrade to now it takes 2 upgrades. So that's tuned back a little bit. But I kind of prefer to take the wait and see approach of how things are going to pan out.
Okay. Go ahead, PvP. Go to PvP.
Interesting, man. I do agree that they're trying to make the game more unit diverse. As a Protoss, I find it increasingly difficult to play because most of our units are spell-based, whereas Terran and Zerg tend to have a lot of static units. We don't really have any of those, you know? So, especially when it's so unit diverse, it's getting harder and harder to just control these armies, you know? I mean, when Showtime beat Polt, he was using 3 AoE units. I mean, I feel like it's going to be that hard to control just about everything in the game. And obviously compared to, you know, let's say Bio, I mean, it still takes the most control. But at the end of the day, it's a lot of spells. I don't think the average player is going to be able to handle doing all these spells. Secondly, regarding the changes in general, I'm just going to be very generalistic. As a Protoss, anyways, I would say that the spells that we were given, the buffs that we were given, some of them were significant, some of them were less. So, for example, Auto making interceptors. I mean, any Protoss with half a brain is going to remember to right click that, and they consider that a buff. Another thing is blink DT. And in my view, there's absolutely no reason why you would ever go blink DT in the early game. And I haven't seen it being used efficiently or well in the mid to late game yet. Everything else that you can make is more interesting than that. So I still don't have the vision and the understanding of why that was really implemented in the game. Because if you're a skillful player, you have a war prism, you can technically blink any unit in the game that you want. Yep. So that's my main concern as a Protoss. I can't speak too much about ZVT. I can say that the Hydras now, if you get both of those upgrades, they're almost viable against everything. But especially my main concern, I guess it's gonna affect ZVT a lot, is the burrow fungals, burrow infestors. I think being able to use all those spells in a burrowed state is just insane, especially in a ZVP format. The only way really, is with an Oracle and being spot on with them. So there's a lot of changes that are, that make it increasingly difficult as a Protoss player. I feel like we're already underrepresented in NA anyways, and it's just making the game more difficult. But overall, I think some of the changes are good because people just weren't playing Sky Toss really. People weren't doing things, and now it's going to open up the game to a little bit of everything. And I'm interested. I'm excited for it. But I'm pretty nervous about a few changes as well. Last one that worries me, I would say, is the tank buff. I would, as a Protoss, I prefer fighting against tank evacs than the tank that's just going to shred everything. Our gateway units are not going to be viable unless you go maybe the Zealots, and Zealots, I don't know. I mean, they don't scale very well against too many army comps. So I'm pretty worried about it, to be honest. And that's my stance as a Protoss.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it seems to me like from all the changes, like Ruff was saying about TVP, is the Cyclone and Mech in general might be better, but they still haven't really addressed anti-air and late game, it feels like. And then the Zerg changes, I don't know, I'm not too sure. Some of the things that worry me are all the changes are like very like late game, like energy centric units such as like the Swarm Host, the Infestor, like you mentioned, PvP, the Goat,
Ravens,
the Burrow Cast, even the Raven for Terran, because I feel like some of these changes are just they're all energy time reliant units that go back to that Swarm Host Raven stalemate play. And then for Protoss, it seems like they kind of get the short end of the stick. You don't really get many changes, and the ones that you do get are kind of meh. But something that so I guess like the next topic, specific one I want to bring up with all you guys, because I know in all my games I complain about this a fuck ton, but it feels like Legacy of the Void compared to Heart of the Swarm is so much more focused on just harassing workers, and this is a big topic in the community. So I mean, you guys can jump in at any point with your experiences, but it feels like every game there's every new thing, every new race, or I mean every race has a new ability that it doesn't cost something, such as the Reaper Grenade is just free, and it turns the game into killing workers. Same thing with the Ravager, it's just a free ability, so it's a strong unit. And then the Adept, you get a free ability with the free shade. And I feel like that stuff, all of those things, maybe not the Ravager so much, but everything seems oriented to killing workers. So what do you guys think about that? Is that because the economy changes? Is that because the new units, like, you think the game is too worker focused or too, because I think... So what do you guys think about that stuff?
I think everything is sped up right now. I mean, everything's a lot faster than it used to be, so... Just because the game accelerates, just accelerating so much faster than it used to. Definitely, they're trying to make it more economy focused, but at the same time, that makes it so that you can also climb back up easier. So it depends. Go ahead. I think I interrupted someone.
The principle of StarCraft 2 that's different from like Blizzard making the ideal war game is they're trying to make a war game esport where the action picks up fairly early, so viewers have something exciting to watch, something decisive that's happening, rather than the one that seems the most true to form. So Defender's Advantage is a huge principle in RTS in general, but with StarCraft 2, it's very clear that the aggressive moves, mechanically speaking, are easier to execute than the defensive procedures for those same moves.
Yeah,
so it's sort of a counterbalance to that.
I definitely think they did like the whole Defender's Advantage thing like in Legacy of the Void, I don't think that's a good thing though. That it's tougher to defend than it is to attack because it feels like you get rewarded for just throwing units away, kind of, or just being the aggressor. And then, whereas in Heart of the Swarm, and this is another point that I'll throw out there for you guys for us to discuss. Like, it feels like the games, because of the aggressive stuff, the games are shorter. Whereas Heart of the Swarm games, they may have been more deathball-y, like, per se, but that also, you know, some of the most viewed games were those 1 hour, 2 hour Turtle Swarm Host, Turtle Raven, Turtle, even Swarm Host against Protoss. Those games were, I mean, they had like thousands of viewers on Twitch. That was like, despite what anyone found boring or exciting, like, I guess because game length, those games got a lot of viewers. Like, what do you guys think about that too?
I think those games were a lot of fun. I actually enjoyed them. It came down to, it's just a bunch of locusts coming at you, and then it's a bunch of PDD and auto turrets, and you're killing nothing virtually, right?
Yeah.
So then it comes down to like this big, huge micro game. So I know a lot of people hated it because I know in tournaments that's when a stalemate starts to happen, and the game can go on forever, especially like the ZBZ Swarm Host versus Swarm Host, which is why they changed it. But honestly, I really enjoyed those games. They were a lot of fun. You just had to like figure something out. How can you be aggressive in that scenario when there's so much stuff?
It felt like a fucking
there was
war, right?
always a way to win.
Yeah.
At least in TVZ, depending on if it was just Vipers pulling the Ravens into the army, or if it was the Ravens throwing down Seeker missiles. There was always something that units were dying at some point. The ZBZ stuff. That's where it got kind of broken, where nothing could die. So, but yeah, I actually had fun with those games.
I mean, those they felt like epic. Like, there's a huge build up, and then it's just like an epic fight, right? I mean, I guess that's where you're coming from. They just felt like epic in proportions.
I guess it just depends on which route the Zerg and the Terran decides to take.
Yeah.
I think the issue with that style is that the games would almost always lead up to that point before it would change. And, since then, I think everything's more dynamic. There's a lot more unit comps and different, situations in the games that you see. So I don't know. I as a Protoss, I didn't enjoy it too much, to be quite frank. I mean, the Swarm Hosts, I don't know. I felt like back then we didn't have too much that compared with that, and now I think that the game is more dynamic. You see more outcomes. I was really liking the state of the game until this next patch, and now the Swarm Hosts are making a comeback. And ironically, like, there was a tournament recently. Swarm Hosts were used by I don't remember which game it was, but anyways, they were used in a tournament, and he clutched the game, man.
Yes.
I mean,
holy shit! And you're leading into the next thing that I just want to talk about. We're gonna go to Neuro for this because the Swarm Host, where you just fucking mentioned, I think
it's so cheap.
I am so scared of this shit. I don't know if you guys are. I think that this shit is gonna be like 180 reverted, and I want Neuro is a Zerg here, so I want his thoughts on this shit. But every game, at least me, on the test mod when they made Swarm Hosts 100, they're 100 minerals, 75 gas on the test mod. I actually had to stop playing the test mod because every single game, at least for Terran, when I was going Mech on the test mod, every single game turned into like old Swarm Host Corruptor with 50 Spore Crawlers in the middle of the map. So I think this is a terrible change, and I honestly think that they should not even do this. Along with the Raven, there's Raven auto turret being buffed. So Neuro, show us the light on this one. Is this going to be terrible? Like, what do you think is going to happen here?
I heard it from the man himself, D. Kim, the boss. He said that this is an overbuff. It's an intentional overbuff because the unit is basically non-existent in the meta
word for word?
now.
Did he say that word for word? I did not see this interview.
He said, no, it's not an interview. I was talking with him personally.
Oh, okay.
So,
wow.
It's
Whoa. Where did you hear this?
Well, dude, if you're...
He mentioned some stuff in even what was it during the finals at BlizzCon that I was just the game is I think he mentioned something along the lines is that it is going to be broken, and then that's when they plan to change things. So
yeah, that's part of why they have this season set to 1 month. It's because some of the changes they kind of know a little bit on the silly side to get people to actually use the unit. Because if they make the Swarm host maybe perfectly balanced, players like Snoot, who unbound the Swarm host hotkey, he's not going to like try and make it if it's just very slightly better. But if it's way better, then people are going to spam it, and then we're going to see like where the ceiling is of this is now a problem. We need to tune this back a little bit. I think it will be tuned back a little bit. It's very cheap for how it is.
I think it's a tactic to just get people to use them because they've been desperately trying to slowly buff and buff and buff, and no one's just doing it. So now they're just making a drastic change, getting everybody on board, make it an inevitable part of the meta. And then they'll just tone it down a little bit, and it'll just be part of everyone's game plan still.
Honestly, I'm of the opinion they could just delete the unit, and I don't think anyone would care. I don't think anyone would, be, the wiser or care about it. Because, I mean, you're saying he said that he knows it's going to be strong. That's one of the things, worries me. They make these changes, and he supposedly knows, it's going to be strong, but... I mean, we had a year of the. There's when you say he knows this, I find it hard to believe because we've had years where Blizzard has known stuff and then they don't fix it for so long, and that's another. What do you guys think about the patching for StarCraft 2? It feels like they don't patch enough, and when these issues do come up with such as the new Swarm host potentially, or new Tempest, or new whatever, it seems like they take a fuckload of time to actually patch it when they could do tinier patches to address some of these things. What do you guys think about the way they've been patching the game in the last couple years?
I wish they would. I know that they used to tweak things very small in the past. They would do very small tweaks, and I actually liked those a lot better. These super major changes makes it kind of I don't know how to explain it. Basically, we're talking about the Swarm host. It's OP. They make it so that Locusts can swoop from further away, 6 range instead of 4, and then they also decrease the cost. Why don't they do one or the other? Doing both is, I'm thinking about it. I used to use, when it was that scenario in Heart of the Swarm where I was like, okay, I need to get rid of the Locusts. I needed 1 Raven when they land for the PDD, and then I needed Thors to shoot them out of the sky when they started flying. And the whole idea is to shoot them out of the sky with a Thor. That's how you're going to deal with Swarm hosts in this scenario. But if they're swooping down at 6 range and your Thor is shooting, it's going to jump on the Thor immediately. And the AI with the Thor, when it's shooting in the air, it takes a long time to focus back to the ground. So they're going to start dying really fast. I can see that happening. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's just so many changes all at once, and there's a lot of unnecessary changes. One of the biggest unnecessary changes is changing the Liberator anti-air. It's already been nerfed the Liberator's been nerfed a couple times already. And I never really saw an issue with it because Corruptors are really good versus the Liberator. And now they also want to get rid of the light.
I feel like in Legacy of the Void, after that Liberator nerf, and I'm speaking as a Terran, you get Gosu and Neuro, you guys can correct me. It feels like Terran is on a timer again, back like we were in the Broodlord Infestor days, where if you don't do massive damage with the 16 Marine drop that Neuro was talking about earlier, if you don't do some kind of critical damage, then Terran just kind of doesn't have a late game right now. You don't have the Raven was nerfed, and then the Liberator was nerfed, and then the Queen was buffed, kind of letting Zerg even get to late game a lot easier. It feels like Terran doesn't really have a late game. Would you guys agree with that?
PvP, I think
PvP.
I think Terrans do still have a late game. I mean, I haven't been against the battlecruisers too much, but at first glance, they do seem like they're pretty good. And Ravens are basically going to be useful to you from the moment you get them till the end of the game. And the longer the game goes, the better it's going to be. I really foresee a lot of Raven play from Terrans in general, just because of how strong everything it has is. And, you know, yeah, you have less anti-air with the Liberator, but I guess they're expecting you to sprinkle some Ravens in there and getting some splash damage that way as well. So I don't know. I feel like it might be compensated for in some ways. And back to your question about, you know, how often they patch it, and it's good. I do agree with Ruff. It's too drastic. I mean, you know, people can only adjust to so much at one time, and I think it feels like a completely different game. It's going to be a whole new dynamic, and I do prefer small incremental changes, see if they work, adapt, adjust, because at one point when you do so many things at the same time, you don't even know what's going wrong and what's going well anymore. You know, it's gonna take a long time to assess the situation because of all these new changes. So I don't agree with the big changes all at once. Like this patch, it's pretty intense. I haven't seen a patch do this many changes, you know?
I feel like if they do changes like this, where they're completely revamping everything, they might as well just take some units out of the game and add new units, like I don't know, like the Goliath or something, you know? Bring some Brood War units back into the game. It's like, well, I keep using the same units and readjusting them, you know?
I mean,
at this point, just bring a fourth race into it. Just bring a fourth race at this point. I don't know, man. It's crazy. Like, I don't know.
It's a hybrid race into the game.
There you go.
That would be for like an expansion pack, I think, if they were gonna do something like that.
But it feels like an expansion pack almost. There's no new units, but everything's different. You're getting different types of utility out of every unit now, and it's just, I don't know. It's gonna be a lot for me to adjust. I've played maybe like 25, 30 games, you know, and I don't know. As a Protoss, I'm hurting. But that might just be my bias once again. You know, I feel like we definitely got the shorter end of the stick, and
yeah. All right, let me shoot this one to Neuro. Let me. All right, Neuro, tell me why I'm wrong. You get to late game with Zerg, you get 10 Vipers, you get Broodlords, you get 50 Spores. How does Terran win? Tell me. Go.
This is in the patch. Like, this is very clearly one of the things that's being nerfed, which is the tier 3 transition between 3 races. When Zerg clicks into Ultras and Broodlords, yeah, it's a bit disproportionately strong. Like, maybe balancing out so Zerg tier 2 is a bit stronger, and the tier 3 transition is a little bit less impactful. Ultras are going to have 1 less finishing armor than they would in the current patch, and then Broodlords have 1 less range. So that's something that was acknowledged with this patch for sure.
But do you really think, like, the one, because in my opinion, -1 Broodlord range, you have to remember, because you're going to have Burrow cast Fungal now too, so you're gonna have Fungal and Parasitic Bomb. The Broodlord range, I think, is like irrelevant. I think because it you know, that doesn't even matter. It's mostly about you click on the unit, get Parasitic Bomb, and then, you know, fungal, and you win, right?
That sounds expensive to me.
It's a lot of units. It's a lot of units for sure, but at the same time, I mean, you know, Terran has a lot of splash, and Zerg has a lot of range. You know, just the way it is at the same time. I think one compensates for the other, and it's all.
What would you guys think
on you.
about the Ghost Snipe not being cancelable to help out Terran late game against against Zerg specifically? Against Protoss, it wouldn't really make much of a difference.
Well, I mean, they do have a cloak for survivability, so if you're sniping the Overseers and whatnot, then there is some counterplay there.
I should just bring back the old snipe.
Yeah,
I think
the instant one, or
there's units that can already deal with like ultras and broodlords and stuff. The main issue is casters and trying to snipe with the current snipe, and then having like your ghost getting attacked is near impossible to deal with those power armies.
One of the problems I've noticed for viewers and players is a lot of times people forget who got into the late game ahead. They just think about, all right, this Terran is in the late game, this Zerg is in the late game, and this Terran is winning or the Zerg is winning, rather than like what was the early and mid game leading up to this, because a lot of times it's just the player who's ahead looks really strong. Like,
well, I have to disagree with you on that, like, heavily, because every time I've off-raced as Zerg and I get to the late game, like, I win almost every time. Like, it's really hard. It's really hard to lose late game Zerg against Terran. Like, the only hard part I feel is defending the first maybe like 1 or 2 the 16 Marine drop and then the attack after. But I feel like it's almost impossible in the current game. I feel like you can't lose almost ZVT late game with Parasitic Bomb. Like, would you think that would need to be toned down? Because I feel like it's like I don't know how you even lose when you get to that situation. Like I don't know if you have experience playing that style where you basically get to late game, you make all the spores, get brood lords. It's sort of like the old infester brood lord, but with parasitic bomb.
I tell people that you coached me. Like when I beat Terrence with this Broodlord Viper composition, they're like, "This is so annoying." I'm like, "Yeah, Avilo coached me this." So we played a game on Frost. We played a game on Frost a long time ago, you and me, and you attacked me with Hellbat Banshee. You killed all my queens and quite a few drones at my third, and you took your fourth earlier, took your fifth earlier. You had more gas, and then you kind of moved forward on the army and just crushed me. It looked really strong. You were super far ahead getting into the late game. In some other games, if I get ahead in the early and mid, then I look really strong in the late game. So to me, that seems to be more of the deciding factor rather than the strength of the races. It's who gets those bases of gas. That's the question that I think a lot of players need to ask is, how many bases of gas does my opponent have?
Oh God!
Because the more gas you have, the more gas-rich your composition can be.
I guess we're just gonna disagree on this. You don't want to see my Zerg versus Terran games, trust me, because I'm like on 3 base, no gas, and I just turtle to that army, and then they can't ever kill me.
I mean, it all depends on the player as well, right? I mean, if you're turtling, some people are able to get the damage in, some people aren't able to get the damage in. So it all depends on that early game, you know. And I think the game is really focused on the early game. I feel like, you know, the first person to deal that little bit of damage really tends to, you know, has a higher chance of just winning overall. And, you know, the early game is actually one of the big concerns for me anyways as a Protoss. Like, I don't know. For example, baneling drops are becoming the go-to, right? And they are the go-to, and they're going to be the go-to even more now because, you know, the banelings are even better. You know, Protoss, you know, we're so reliant on the mothership. It's actually bothersome sometimes because if you don't have it, you just flat out lose the game. And now, you know, defending baneling drops, you know, it's going to take 2 hits to kill a baneling.
I don't think the baneling change. They're essentially giving banelings free combat shields. That's what I've seen people refer to it as. They call it baneling combat shields.
Well, it's a big percentage. It's a big percentage of their health that they're gaining. You know, so a lot of units are gonna have to take an extra shot to kill them. You know, maybe in the state of the game as EVT it was necessary. I don't know. I'm not gonna speak on that. But you know, for ZVP. In the early game, I think it's just going to be crazy. Reapers, you know, I mean, basically early game, like now Protoss, like we don't have real ways to scout anymore, especially with the Adept being gone. It's going to be very, very difficult, you know, in the first few minutes, like holding against early cheeses, especially against Zerg. I'm really thinking about ZVP. You know, ZVT, PVT. You know, my concern is more of the mid game. You know, everything is just going to crush our gateway units. We have to go for Sky Toss now. And if the Terran ends up going bio instead, you know, then Sky Toss is, you know, in the very early game isn't very strong, you know. So yeah. I don't know. I feel like the state of affairs in the early game is very, very grim, and it's hard for us to get information because for the first time, I know you guys probably have your own thoughts about the Adept, but you know the Adept shade was a godsend. You know, at least we could scout now. At least a Protoss player who bothers trying to scout can scout now. It's like it's very, very hard in most cases. You know?
Fuck Adepts.
I know you hate him. I know you hate him, man. I won't go. We've played a game and I used Adept, so I know you hate him. But
actually, so about the Adept, what do you think about the Adept basically replaced the Zealot, right? Like I don't know, like Neuro, Ref, do you guys see Zealots in your games? I don't like what they need this Zealot needs to be on a milk carton. What do you think about this?
Oh, I see Zealots in my games when I play Protoss.
If you're playing Mech, you're gonna see Zealots, in my opinion. And if you're playing Mech, you're gonna see Zealots, you know. Yeah. And if you're not, then you're gonna see Adepts. It's really that simple.
I never see that. It's always Adepts.
I don't really see it.
It's like even when I play Zerg, it's always Adepts. You know.
I think the combo of the 2 changes will be nice. So the Adept shade is being reduced in its vision by a whole lot, which kind of makes it.
That is nothing. That is nothing. Let's all just be let's be real, man. Adept shade vision. That's nothing.
They're gonna be.
That's nothing. It's huge. We can't see anything. We can't see anything. You can hide your unit like 2 squares away. We won't see it. We're gonna shade in and die. Like that is a huge change. We can't scout a thing, and I cannot let you say it's not a big deal. It's huge. Like we can't get information by shading up your ramp anymore. We can't We can't even know if we're gonna get Shrek'd by Lings once we go on to creep. Like people.
But it doesn't change the functionality of the unit. I mean,
it doesn't, but it's gonna take an extreme gain sense to be able to truly capitalize on it. I feel like people who actually played with Adepts before this patch are gonna be maybe okay, but anyone new trying to like shade around and doesn't have the feel of where units are gonna be and all that in their minds, like it's not possible. Scouting against Terran, it's just not possible anymore. You know,
I think you.
Unless you sacrifice
I think the Adept has spoiled you, Gosu. I think it's spoiled because literally, like every 10 seconds, an Adept shade, like shading in. Back in my day, you used to have to scout with observers, bro.
Man, I don't know, man. I used to play in those days too, and at the end of the day, Reapers weren't regenning health. That was a different time. Like now, we need a mechanism to scout that doesn't cost us 100 freaking gas. Whether it's whether it's with hallucinations or with an observer. At the end of the day, we should have at least one unit that can get in there. Okay, Zergs have overlords, Terrans have reapers, we have nothing. So at the end of the day, I think that removing the vision of the shade is a big deal, and it's something that should be kept at the end of the day, because you just said it yourself. The unit is going to operate the same when you're taking your big fights.
But that's the thing. The unit.
At least make it 5. At least make it 5. At least cut it in half.
I don't think the vision
Don't go
will
from
do
everything
much.
to nothing. You know what I mean? At least make it half vision. At least like a compromise. There's no middle ground. They went from everything to nothing, and that's my main concern with it. I think it's too extreme.
I honestly think it's not like. Mark my words. After the patch, like Adepts, you're still gonna shade 10 Adepts in and start doing the whole shade. No, I don't think Protoss really, because the whole PvZ build where you open up like the triple gateway right into Twilight Council, resonating glaives. Like I don't think you care if you already know what the Zerg can have and not have at that point in the game. Especially like I'm talking PvZ, because I actually see them more when I'm off racing a Zerg than I do when I play Terran. But I feel like even if I was playing from the Protoss perspective, I don't really care what I see. I'm gonna shade them in anyways and kill the workers, right? So like
I don't know, man. If you're, it depends on how many gates you're doing. If you're talking about 2 Adepts, maybe you're right. But if you're talking about like 6 gates, your army is Adepts. I mean, it's just basically not going to be very viable anymore unless the Zerg is really unprepared for it. Unless he has no units, a very smart Zerg, in my view, is going to be able to position himself nicely against Adepts that don't know where they're going or don't know what's waiting for them when they arrive. I mean, already people are learning how to defend against them. So now I feel like not having a chat, like what's the point of being able to cancel that shade if you don't even know what you're gonna be up against? You know what I mean? Like it's gonna be very difficult.
All right, fair enough. We're gonna disagree on this one, man.
I'm standing my ground.
The prism is getting nerfed too, which is actually really noteworthy for Adept pressure in the mid game.
Huge.
And DT pressure too. So that was something that people were complaining about, mainly the pickup range.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting that they didn't change the pickup range, but they changed the HP instead, which I guess that's sort of keeping it in the realm of counterplay. So you need to have something to deal with the prism sooner, but that has been a really strong aspect that shapes a lot of ZDP at least. So the meta kind of went from just mass Adepts almost every game to a bunch of DT drops and Archon drops as the opener, and how you can just keep 2 Archons on a prism alive, pretty much unpunished.
Yeah.
The Queen buff was actually meant to deal with the Warp Prism.
Yeah, I was thinking about that.
But it actually backfired on Terran.
Yeah, you liberated lovers.
Yeah, because David Kim specifically mentioned that it was meant to deal with the Warp Prism.
I honestly,
too.
Let's bring up the Queen. Since you brought up the Queen, let's talk about that. I feel this was.
I hate that fucking unit.
I played a
It
game.
does everything.
I played a game, guys. I'm not even joking. I played a game last night. Some dude built only queens, lings, and that was all he built. Like he built like literally 200 queens, and I'm fighting an army of queens, and Cyclone Hellbat Ghost is having trouble fighting against like 40 queens. I mean, what?
I think the reason I dislike the Queen so much is it's a mineral-only spellcaster that has insane anti-air range, and it can heal each other.
It's like the Raven. It's
and
like or
it
the Swarm
has
Host.
no armor designation.
That too. It's a free. It's one of these free units.
Because that's
yeah.
the case, it makes it very strong when it comes to the late game, especially when like resources are running out. Like let's say you don't really have gas, that's when it becomes very difficult to deal with Zerg armies. You can't go anything except like pure Marine or pure Thors. To deal with it.
Look at what
The
it's done to the
counterplay is
early
clearing
game.
creep though. It's the most creep dependent unit in the game. So if you're clearing creep in the mid game, then it's not going to be as impactful for big pushes in the late game. Yeah, it's very strong. I agree with that.
If
Queen
you
is
have a
very strong.
lot of queens, though, the creep will spread fast since the changes of Legacy of the Void for creep sides.
I think my biggest issue with it is what it does. At least in ZVT, for limiting Terran openers, you can't feasibly go Banshee anymore. You can't. Liberator was nerfed plus the Queen buff. You can't really open Liberators that well. Like
The thing I didn't like was that they buffed the Queen, but then they also changed the Swarm as well, which makes it very difficult. So if you try to siege up the Queen, obviously you can like hit the Liberator, but not just that. The Spore can instantly go and regroup very quickly. So if you're not paying attention at that specific second, you may just lose the Liberator.
Yeah. What do you think about the Queen, Neuro, overall?
Well, I really like the range for dealing with Liberator harass because before that change, you would either need Ravager or Spire to deal with early Liberator harass, which is a huge investment for a very small investment. So that's kind of leveled the playing field, I feel like. And it did cause a lot of consequences in like the mid and late game where once Zerg gets to tier 3, the queens that are with the army are just way more effective than they were before, when the queen range change was primarily for defending harassment. So that's something that we'll kind of have to look at, especially with this new patch, is how does the queen range buff affect not just the mid game dealing with Prism and Liberator, but the late game when you have your tier 3 units as well.
I honestly feel like it made Zerg early game way too easy. I mean, I definitely agree with you about the whole easier to defend Liberators, because that shit was annoying. You know, one Liberator sieges up and then it's like, oh, it's just out of range. I don't have 3 Ravagers. I don't have a Corruptor yet. I guess I'm not mining for a minute. But
you know what kind of griped me the most is if you're not perfect with sieging it, like if you hotkey it, you like shift the ability and you're going across the map because you're too busy macroing and you like shift it behind the mineral line instead. Sometimes you know how the Liberator will like slide a little bit and then throw down the zone. If you don't do it perfect, the Queen will actually be able to outrange it like linearly from the Liberator. It drives me insane sometimes when that happens, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Like I can understand if it comes from like sides or something, but when it's directly like shooting linearly in front of me, you don't know. I get so pissed. I start raging. Like, what the fuck is with the range?
You know,
so in terms of
go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. In terms of queens, I mean, I think in ZVT, I think I think it's because it's because of Liberators. I mean, it had to be done because before that patch, I mean, Liberators were just being abused in ZVT, and I know that. And now it's like, yeah, you gotta position it the right way, and you gotta make sure you do it right. But once it's set up, it's set up. There's no micro per se for it. It just has to be set up and it's done. And the amount of effort that it takes to kill it, maybe for a queen, it's not so bad. Maybe for Zerg, it's not so bad. But I could just say as a Protoss, I wish we had queens because against these Liberators in the early game, like as Nero was saying, there was maybe just a Spire as an answer, and what was the other thing? Ravager, exactly.
Yeah.
And that was it. For Protoss, I mean.
You need 5 Stalkers every time, right?
You need to sacrifice, like, unless you have really impeccable micro, even if you have blink, it's sometimes questionable. You have to blink in with like, I think 3 Stalkers blinked in straight.
Prism's pretty good.
Yeah, you have to get a War Prism or you have to go Sky Toss, but on certain maps, like basically if they don't shape the maps to make it not too abusive, it's a little much, in the current state.
The common thing everyone would talk about, like it all goes back to the worker harass. Like they made it a unit that essentially is like a killer of workers. What do you guys think about this? Instead of like, because I feel like they made change after change after change. The way Blizzard does changes to me, it seems like they make a change because of something that was fucked up, and then they make another change because of something that was fucked up, instead of looking at the problem. So what do you think if, like, at the very first thing, they had just said, hey, let's make it so Liberators can't target workers? Like, do you think something like that would have been better than, like, changing the Queen, changing the Liberator against Corruptors? Like, because it feels like a lot of these things are just... It goes back to the worker harass thing.
The only way I can think of that is it can't target floaty units.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Archons and SCVs.
Kind of like the spider mines in StarCraft 1. They couldn't target Archons and probes and stuff.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
that could be a good mechanic
so
for the libs for sure.
Yeah, there's kind of a precedent for that. So
because I don't mind them in fights, I don't mind them in straight up engagements. But when you just got proxy liberated, or not even proxied, just sent really early to your base at a good timing, at a good angle where nothing could kill it unless you have that war prism. It's a little much, and even if it's just covering like 1 or 2 mineral patches, you're still like, it's still hurting you. You still have to readjust yourself a lot, in contrast to how much effort and energy it takes to just siege it up. You know what I mean? I think it's not proportionate. Like how we were talking about this earlier, how much it takes to defend that thing in comparison to just setting it up in the first place.
I think that's again the common thing for all these things that are. At least when I read the forums, when I see people in chat, or even in my own games, and what you guys are mentioning, that some of the things in Legacy of the Void are easy to do but insanely difficult to counter, such as Parasitic Bomb. It's on your units, it's insanely difficult to counter it, or Adept shading into a base, or Liberator sieging behind a mineral line. They're aggressive plays that take almost no effort, but on the defender's part, if you're not prepared, then you kind of just die. So...
One of the things that's important to consider too, like as we're talking about stuff, is the play style that we're basically arguing from and how we like to play StarCraft.
Absolutely.
So we have, in this particular talk, a very heavy representation of players who really like the late game. A lot of people who play StarCraft have no idea how to play the late game. Once it goes to tier 2, they get lost. So one of the interesting things about StarCraft is you can specialize as someone who cheeses every game and potentially get to GM, or you can be someone who does really well in the 4 to 5 to 6 base starvation type of game. So that's something that kind of keeps it fresh and dynamic and allows people to approach it from different angles. Because I feel like not everyone has the time or the game experience to make those late game decisions, understand all the different compositions and how to counter stuff. They prefer to just like hit a really technical timing and be really annoying with harassment.
Yeah.
And that kind of keeps it fresh.
But it shouldn't be easy, though. I agree with you. Like, there should be different play styles, but I think they shouldn't make the whole attacking thing so easy, because even in StarCraft 1, games went really long and were death-bally, but they weren't easy games. Like, you had to, everything was difficult to do in the game.
The one thing, I'd like to, that I'd respectfully disagree on is that I think it's a good thing, because at the end of the day, they're trying to give the game life as well. Especially, there was a bit of I feel like the game is getting more life, but the whole dynamic, the whole new dynamic is keeping it fresh. Is keeping new players, attracting new players, and keeping them there. They don't need to learn the absolute most complicated strategies to win. So I think it gives it a fresh breath. And obviously, if you're a really really good player, then you can still surpass all those cheeses and get to that late game if it's what you really want. So.
Let me go to something that's in the current game that has been showing up in the last. It's been in the game since the game launched, since Legacy of Void launched. But Reapers, 3 racks Reapers. We just saw Bjorn do this at BlizzCon. It's not new. I will say this for everybody listening. This is not new. It's been like this for a while. I feel in ZVT and TVT, the whole 3 racks Reaper thing, and yes, it is. I'm just gonna put out my thoughts. I'll let you guys go ham on this one, but I think it makes the game. It's not necessarily the Reaper itself being mega imba. It's the fact that you don't know, as a Zerg or a Terran, is there a 2nd or 3rd racks on the map, and then so you can't go back in time and change your build to account for it. So you kind of in TVT, I think Ruff, you'll probably agree with me on this. You have to play the whole Reaper game. Like, is he building Reapers? I'm gonna build Reapers. Is he not? Well, then I'm gonna anti-counter it. But I did the anti-Reaper counter. He didn't go Reapers. Like, it's the whole bullshit game of luck, and then I guess
You can't open up with. You have to open a Reaper.
exactly you have to, and then I guess
if you want to survive a Reaper proxy.
yeah. And let me go over to the ZVT real quick, because I think Neuro will probably echo this a little bit. But ZVT, I think, is the same. I mean, we just beyond fucking Thermal. I think at Home Story Cup right now, it's the same thing. ZVT. It's such a strong build because of the free AOE grenade that you can keep massing them, and you just basically get so much value that you're controlling the Zerg's larva count so easily, and there's almost no drawback to it. Like, you're almost always going to get ahead. If you go for the Reapers, especially on some maps, it's even stronger than on other maps, but it feels like there's no drawback to it. So what do you think about the whole Mass Reaper shenanigans stuff?
It's been discussed a whole lot, and I feel like part of the problem, especially for streamers who play the game, is that the early game is usually when you read chat and answer questions and stuff like that. So it's really frustrating to like answer a question, read something, you make one misstep with your first queen, you lose it, and then the Reaper snowballs and kills you. So it's a very...
No, that's bullshit! Wait, what? Wait, what? No, you can't... No. You can't... Okay, I'm sorry. The whole game, you can't argue that, like, because we're reading chat as streamers. Just in general. Sorry, reset, please, reset.
I was just making a note of that and how that happened. It happens to me, at least. I wasn't accusing you of saying that the only reason you die to Reapers is because...
It's personal experience, you know?
No. Yeah, I know, but I mean, that's not like an argument that you could use for whether the Reaper is too strong or too weak.
I wasn't addressing that yet.
Okay.
But let's get into that then. So the Reaper as a unit, I think if you compare it to Heart of the Swarm, in Heart of the Swarm you could make 1, 2, or 3 Reapers, and you have a way to get scouting early on. You have a way to pick a couple drones, maybe a queen, if you have good micro. But it was a phase that ended at a very clear point. The problem with Legacy of the Void and the grenade is you can snowball the Reaper count up to like 15 or 20, and it's not even really a bad thing. And you're just applying pressure and then being able to expand freely on your side of the map. One of the things that could be addressed as an indirect solution to Reaper is map decisions. So Frozen Temple, Galactic Process are ridiculously strong Reaper maps. Like, the cliff into the main base is so huge that it's very, very difficult to have enough defense to hold both locations and be able to saturate 2 bases. So a map like New Gettysburg, Reapers aren't really a problem. Frost, we saw a horizontal spawn and Beyond Go for Reapers. That was kind of a weird exception, but map design could be one thing that could be a counterbalance to the Reaper grenade. I don't know about TVT, but that's definitely a huge factor for Zerg, is the number of cliffs that the Reapers can utilize to get into your bases.
In Heart of the Swarm, a lot of the maps were redesigned to stop blink stalkers.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
One small change I was thinking, like if we're gonna get some ideas to make the Reaper a little bit more balanced, is when the Reaper throws a grenade and launches your units into the air, you can't give any commands to your units that are airborne, which kind of feels like you have no counterplay for that interaction. So why couldn't you queue up an action, say your drone or your queen is in the air and you want to build an extractor with the drone. As soon as the drone hits the ground, it goes and builds the extractor. That would allow you to at least micro your units as the Reapers are being microed, rather than to just be kind of victim to the grenades and having your shit like all launched around the map.
But I think the problem is still the grenade, though. I don't think it matters.
I think I have a gripe with that with Vipers, too.
What?
Well, because, like, when I play TVT and I deal with, like, the Reaper, if I try to nuke, like, one Reaper bomb, like, hits my ghost and the nuke's canceled, and you just lost it. I fucking hate that when I'm trying to do, like, a timing, because they never had that in Heart of the Swarm, so I'd be able to do, like, this nice little cute nuke build, bust the front. But you can't do that anymore because that one Reaper jumps down, throws that grenade, and then just cancels it.
I haven't thought of that, but that's
Viper,
hilarious.
I've been playing with like Cyclones and Hellions and Liberators lately. I feel like that's the only solution to dealing with like the Viper and not, having to deal with Blinding Cloud, because Blinding Cloud, it doesn't really affect that army comp. But my biggest gripe is I'll sit there and I'll lock on the units with these Cyclones, and then they'll get pulled, and then the ability gets canceled, or the lock-on gets canceled. Then you kill nothing, you lose the unit. I feel like stuff like that. I feel like the interruptions are kind of make things. I don't know. It makes it so much harder in general.
So you guys would all agree that the Reaper. I mean, it is a problem, though, right?
Well, I can say, yeah. Go ahead. Sorry. As a Protoss, it hasn't really been too big of an issue for me. I think some units, are better against certain races than others. I think the game's always just been that way. Reaper as a Protoss hasn't been too.
You're
too
over
big
there
of an
sipping
issue.
pina coladas, bro. We know.
I'm hanging out. Yeah, everything's okay. But once again, that might change with the Adept nerf. Because we won't be able to just chase them the same exact way. With the very small radius of vision. So maybe it'll become a problem. It depends how they shape the maps, in my view. I think Reapers are just a problem if the maps are shaped in such a way that there are spots that are very close and you can't scout them, maybe like King Sejong behind the rocks, like as Protoss, we have our mothership, so we can easily go there. But maybe for Zerg, you guys still have Overlords and stuff. So I don't know. I guess there's just certain maps where, it's easier to jump into the base, and other maps where, they're very limited, points of entry. So I think it's just understanding which maps are Reaper centric, and maybe just being more aware on those maps.
What would you guys think of this solution? Because and this isn't just me. I've once again, just from reading, so I saw some people suggesting to limit the Reaper grenades so that you only have like 2 or 3 of the grenades per Reaper, so that you can't. At some point, it would make it a little bit more skillful because you have to allocate the grenades properly. You can't just spam them over and over again, and then at some point also. It ends the attack. What would you guys think about something like that?
I think it wouldn't scale well throughout the rest of the game for you guys. Already the Reaper has really little utility past the early game, right? Like that's the thing. That's the other thing. It's like, what's its utility later on in the game?
Reaper, it's terrible. It's only used to all in.
The Reaper used to be decent in the late game in Wings of Liberty.
I agree. Yeah.
It could kill buildings quickly, yeah.
Exactly. But now it doesn't have that utility anymore. So I think the way they there's different perspectives to look at it. But, it's one of those units that's extremely strong in the early game, but it's a unit that you're not even going to even think about in the late game. So you got to look at it from that perspective as well.
It's just terribly balanced, or designed, rather. It only is used in early game to kind of all in, and then past that point, you never build it again. It's just useless. I think if there's units like that and this goes for all 3 of the races, if there's some unit that's useless, it should be essentially reworked like they do in MOBA games for champions. They rework a champion and then they change that champion to see it come into viability or whatnot again. Just that. I guess that's what they've done with the Swarm Host a little bit for this next patch, but Nero, you were gonna go on this the Reapers.
Yeah, having an exception like Reaper would be the only unit with limited ammo. That would be a bit strange. I think just increasing the cooldown a little bit would mean that you have to be more purposeful with the grenades, because we saw like Euthermal versus Scarlet. Once the Reapers reach a certain point where you can just spam the ramp, there's nothing that Zerg can really do. So if there's a little bit more of a window where the Reapers have spammed their grenades and now they're on cooldown, so now you can go between your bases, it would feel like there's more counterplay to that rather than there are just enough grenades and it's never going to end at this point.
Yeah.
So that would be a limitation.
I still think you're just gonna. The Reaper's gonna. It's gonna be about the same though. Either way, I'm thinking more for TVT on this one. It feels like the grenades are a big deal, but half the time without the grenades, it's just kind of a coin flip. Like the guy, if he proxied 3 racks Reaper, he gets to your base with 3 Reapers against your 1 Reaper, and you even without the grenade, you're still gonna lose. I don't know if what you guys think about TVT.
TVT. I got nothing to say, but I wanted to talk about that game with Bjorn and Scarlet. We have to look at who's playing. You know what I mean? It's Bjorn playing, right? So I'll be quite frank, I didn't even see the game. I was in the chat, but I wasn't looking at the game, and everyone was freaking out. I'm like, okay, they really missed something there, and I haven't seen it yet. But I've seen Bjorn do some insane things. Like I've seen him do some ridiculous things. Like if you saw that, did any of you guys catch a stream the other night?
Nope.
Didn't you guys catch it? Anyways, he killed like 2 immortals with 1 tank and a dropship. He's insane. So I don't know if he's necessarily the best example. I think he's just extremely skilled as well, and we got to take that into account for those games. I didn't see them, but you just from a neutral perspective, you got to take that into account. But I think it's just part of StarCraft as well. If you go back to TVT, you're talking about how you can't really scout how many Reapers are coming, etc. But it's the same thing with PvZ, right? We're not going to be able to see how many Lings are coming behind the first 4 that kill your probe or the first 6 that kill your Adept, So I mean, it's also part of the game, and you got to find ways around it.
Yeah, it's important to point out too that StarCraft is a game of incomplete information, so it's kind of like poker in the sense that your build order is a bet and it's a risk on what can potentially happen. Are you going for something that is the safest possible build, or are you being a little bit on the side of greed or a little bit on the aggressive side of things, and how to take advantages with what the opponent has chosen to do?
Yeah, of course.
And how there are a lot of situations
I'll
where...
agree with that, because that's what happens in tournaments a lot.
I mean, that's true.
I agree with that too. A great
Look
perspective.
at Thermal versus Neve when he won the finals. I don't remember which tournament, but
that's true. But I would argue
he literally studied and did blind counters to everything Neve was doing with the proxies and stuff.
I mean, I get what you guys are saying about you could the poker openings. It's going to exist no matter what. But I the one thing I would argue is it's more amplified in Legacy of the Void than it was in Heart of the Swarm. In Heart of the Swarm, a lot of these gimmicky build order wins didn't really happen. You could almost always play a macro game, and if somebody all-ined you had a way to stop it. Whereas this whole Reaper, guessing game, the whole Mass Adept, there's a lot of things that you just can't stop, even if you see it coming.
What I liked about Heart of the Swarm was you could open up with anything. And you can play a short game or a macro game. It was all just based on skill and control.
Yeah.
Well,
that was just my opinion from what I see compared to Legacy of the Void. Legacy of the Void, I feel like there are some very, very, very powerful things, and then there's openers that just don't work. I can't open up Ghosts if I want to anymore.
It's interesting perspective.
Even though it's a handicap, I can't really just do it anymore and still carry into the later game based on that skill. I can't you can't go into a Raven tank opening anymore versus Zerg, because you can't really stack Ravens like you used to. The Adept makes it. I think versus Protoss is probably the hardest right now for Terran. So with the new patch with the Cyclone on the reactor, it'll be better to stop all the cheeses. But
did they keep that? You can still react to them?
I think I would prefer the way the game is now with just some tweaks.
Can you still react to the Cyclones?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. I thought they reverted that too.
So I don't know. There's just I can literally do anything and just have fun and still carry my games basically, but you can't really do that here. You have to open up versus Zerg, for example. You need react to Marines. If you get one base roach with Ravager, you're probably gonna be dead. You can't just open up a single Rags with Marines and then a single tank, and then they'll just get bombed and you don't have enough units. I feel like a lot of my openers are very one-dimensional if I want to play serious and win versus someone really good.
I would say that is functional for Zerg as well in Legacy of the Void, so we have to open with gas in pretty much every matchup now because of the strength of the new Reaper, because of the strength of Adept, and just the tempo of ZVZ. So in Heart of the Swarm, you kind of had the option, do I want to go gasless as my opener, and I'll have more minerals, more queens, more drones, but I sacrifice map control for a longer period of time. That's not really an option, so I'm not sure what they could potentially do to make gasless viable, or if they want to, but it's a very clear change from HOTS to Legacy. Is the early game feels a little bit more straightforward and less varied. There are some cheeses, but it seems like a smaller set of build order variation, and most of the variation comes in the mid and late game in Legacy when you get to 3 or 4 bases.
I would argue that that's really good. I mean, I personally prefer the less variation. not 50 bullshit things coming at you. Then you can play out a macro game. But seems like Legacy of Void went like the other way. Here's something to bring up. What would just theoretically, how do you guys think the game? How do you think Legacy of the Void would be with all of the new units? You know, Ravagers, Adepts. You know, the Root Grenade. How do you guys think the game would be if Legacy of the Void used the Heart of the Swarm economy? What do you guys think that it would be a better game, a worse game? What do you guys think about? Like,
so you mean when you say same economy though? Do you mean like all the same mechanics? Like Chrono Boost is back what it used to be? Like, are you talking about everything? Like
for this one, I'm just saying specific. Like, let's say that all of them, because you know they remove like 500 minerals per patch per some of the patches. So that, and also even if, like, let's say we had like a 6-worker start in Legacy of the Void, so like those those two specific things. How do you guys think the game would it be better or worse comparatively? Just
I think I don't know about everybody, but I would say the majority of players that are like Grandmaster would probably prefer the old economy. That's just from what I've heard, because most of the time. But I noticed that a lot of strictly viewers preferred a new one because then you see like all the action and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's what I was gonna say. Is that, I mean, obviously when the game starts off at a slower pace, it gives you more room to understand what's going on and what's coming at you. So as a player, obviously, like if I have that extra time, it's great. But at the same time, you know, you guys were saying how the game feels a little bit more one-dimensional now. For me, it was like the opposite with Protoss. You know, like against Zerg, you know, for the longest time, you know, the early game was always the same. Everyone was going Immortal Sentry. Everyone was doing the same thing over and over again. You know, I found it redundant. You know, and now I feel like, you know, we just have a lot more options. And I think now the state of the game is going to evolve towards every Protoss just opening up Sky Toss. You know, I think that's what it's going to be, because Mech is going to be so much more tempting. You know, people are not going to want to deal with, you know, the crazy banelings on the ground, so they'll just get a lot of oracles and stuff. So I think I don't know. It's definitely, yeah. The next patch is definitely going to change the way the game looks.
I prefer the Legacy of the Void economy mainly because I like to hatch first, and it kind of gets me to that stage a lot sooner. So 12 workers, I'm going to hatch first anyway. So why have that extra couple minutes where I'm making workers up to 15 to take my 15 hatch and Heart of the Swarm? I do like the change in tempo of how fast you take the 3rd and 4th bases in Legacy, because expanding, I think, is a really fun thing to do in StarCraft, and figuring out how to defend those expansions. So if you're a macro-oriented player, expanding is a fun thing. It's a fun goal to have. And then taking the 4th and 5th bases, your main is mining out faster. Camera control is a really huge factor for Legacy of the Void that seems to be like more punishing or rewarding than it was in Heart of the Swarm. So your ability to jump between bases and manage stuff that's more spread out happens a lot faster. And that's pretty difficult to do, I would say.
It is. It encourages more skillful play, you know, you know, just attacking on multiple fronts, getting attacked on multiple fronts, you know, controlling a vast amount of units really quickly from the get-go, you know, makes it a lot harder to macro throughout the game as well. So I don't know. I find it more interesting. I find it more dynamic. I find it more. Okay. Yeah, I think it just leaves more things open. You know, more options open, and yeah, that's it. I think it's a good thing.
That's So we had like 2 people for, 2 people against, kind of like on that one. So all right, so let's go to. I haven't actually talked about it, ironically enough, but the mech changes. What do you guys think about the what do you guys think? I'm gonna go to Ruff first. Does Mech, the new Cyclone change, it feels like an all-in unit. It feels like you don't have much anti-air. It feels like, I don't know. It just feels like Mech still has no anti-air, but the other races have like mega air against it, and I don't
like the Cyclone, the new one.
Why do you not like the new one?
Because the old one, you could use it for various different things, like dealing with Ultralisk, which used to be a problem for most people. Unfortunately, unless you're a mech player, Bio's kind of fucked, but if you're a mech player, Ultras are not a problem when you're playing versus Zerg. It's, like I said, it's more like the Broodlords and Vipers and stuff. I liked using the Cyclone, the old Cyclone. I feel like the new one is kind of like a battle cruiser. If you kite back, it's gonna just like fire once and do like no damage and move forward slightly, and constantly do that. And so yeah, when you say it's more like an all-in unit, it feels that way.
So
I feel like I'm just gonna go Reactor Cyclone, try to do this big little push real quick, and then I'm just gonna do tanks and Thors and stuff.
So do you think Mech will be more viable against like Protoss and Zerg, or do you think it's going to be about the same as it is now?
It's a tough thing to think about. I was thinking about it. I know that Hydras can take 3 hits currently from a siege tank. But I feel like with the new patch, if you get your +1 attack up, I don't know how much damage it does extra, but if the tank is doing 40 damage, 40 times 2 is 80, right? Hydras have 80 health, so if you're getting like a +2 or a +3 extra damage on the light armor part, the Hydras are going to die in 2 hits now. So I'm thinking about it like that a little bit. Like, okay, it's going to be a little bit easier to deal with that kind of army. Whereas, you know, so if you split your tanks, you're not going to die as easy versus like Vipers and stuff. Obviously, you can't pick the tanks up out of Viper clouds anymore. So you need to be very careful about how you set it up. I feel like, you know, I feel like Mech is going to be kind of okay. And since they're buffing the Hydra, I think it kind of cancels out the tank killing the Hydra easier. That's just kind of like my opinion on it. I don't like the buff, but I can kind of see why they did it if the tank is going to start killing them in 2 hits now.
Yeah.
To address your question about, you know, Mech and TVP, I would tell you that it's going to be absolutely insane. It's going to be nuts. Like, first of all, like I didn't mind tank evacs, you know. I really didn't mind them. You know, it's positional. You know, if you have good scouting, you can deny them. It's not so bad. You know, now the tanks are going to absolutely demolish everything on the ground, like absolutely everything, you know.
Yeah, I'll agree to that because in Heart of the Swarm, I was one of the few players toward the end that played Mech and was like top 10 GM, and I would beat Protoss players with it. And the whole idea behind it is not to attack until you have a big ball of tanks. When you have a big ball of tanks, the Protoss can't kill it.
Yep, they can even kill Immortals at that point.
You would just EMP the Immortals back in HOTS and just kind of demolish everything. But if the tanks are getting this buff to damage, it's like the Immortals still shouldn't be a problem now. And then a lot of the other units are going to start dying a lot faster too, like the light armor units.
Yeah, so that was my main criticism for sure. But the thing is really the damage, and also, you know, could any of you guys tell me why the Cyclone would need more damage in TVP?
Well, the whole thing with this, and I don't like the new Cyclone either, because I feel they're giving it a role. You guys remember the Warhound in Heart of the Swarm? That it feels like this is them bringing back the Warhound essentially. It feels like the exact same thing. It's just like a very beefy ground to ground unit that is like very bland. You like Ruff said, you can't micro it now against ultras. You can't kite with it because it doesn't have the lock on. So to me it feels like it's literally like a ball. They just took a ball. They took a ball of putty and they threw some numbers on it. They threw some stats on it, and they're like, here, go play Mech. So I honestly I don't like the new Cyclone. I feel like the tank already provides enough damage, like Ruff was saying. Like tanks, when you get enough of them, they provide so much damage. There's no need to have this single target unit that is, you know, it's almost removing a role where the Cyclone actually could help counter some air. I think they should refocus it to being able to counter air units instead of
how everybody would go like one Cyclone just to be safe versus like a Drops or Banshees or Prism. I feel like what's going to end up happening is now it's going to be used to kind of stop cheeses from the reactor, and it's going to be very good there, but then the use in the late game is going to be gone as a Mech player.
Yeah,
it's weird saying this because a lot of people are like, well, you know, nobody uses Cyclones in the late game anyways. Well, if you're a Mech player, you'll use them in the late game. If for current in the current game, but you know, there's hardly any Mech players anyways, so
I think that'll change
Just
though.
based off of my experience, the Cyclone is powerful in the late game. It deals with Tempest easy when you have Ravens with the PDD. It deals with the Stalkers very easily. It allows you to actually kind of fight the Protoss in the late game if you can get to that point. It's more like the timings that end up killing me.
Okay.
You know, like a Blink Stalker all in or a Mass Adept with, you know, Phoenixes or something that kind of kills me when I'm trying to macro versus Protoss.
I
Mech,
can
the
see the
current
new
game.
the new Cyclone be good against those specifically.
Yeah, the Cyclone would be good versus that stuff now, but now that they changed it so that the Cyclone can't really shoot air now, it's like, okay, what are you gonna do now to deal with the Tempest?
And what? Yeah. What about? So, Ghosty, what do you think? I don't know. See,
what
the thing
about
is,
the carrier? They used to kill carriers fast too.
Yeah. The thing
Yes.
is, I don't know how much experience like many people have against Mech. Like, so I'm asking Ghosty here. What do you think about late game, like against Mech?
I played 2 late game PVTs against Mech on the test server, and I mean, I'm a little torn. Like, I played it once when the Tempest range was the same as a turret, and I think they just increased it by 1, so now I went from 7 to 8, right? So now it's like 1 range away from a turret. So the first time I played it, I think it was just completely broken. I felt like we didn't have many solid answers against a good Mech Terran in the late game, because I mean our late game unit would be getting countered by what is it, 75 mineral, 120. How much does a turret cost? I don't even know. But anyways, we'd be getting countered by turret, you know. So I mean, it was pretty painful, and the spell wasn't very effective either. I think the new spell is definitely strong. I had the chance to play with it once, and it's strong. The fact that you can hit a stunned unit is nice. It's strong. Is it hard for a player with good micro to escape it? I don't think so. I mean, I think it even notifies you of the little circle, like where it's about to hit, right? So I mean, it's like the equivalent of playing World of Warcraft and just dodging the damage on the ground, you know? Like if you just pay attention, you're not going to get hit by that at all. So it's hard to base my judgment off of one actual PVT using the current setup, but I think that's given the short range, I think that spell is still okay. You know, it's a strong spell, but it's hard to get a good Terran caught in there or a good Zerg caught in there.
I think they should just make it so that it targets only 1 unit and make it like lockdown instant.
Well, that could be actually very cool against like the biggest units, especially if it works on massive units, you know, like Thors and stuff. Maybe that could be interesting, or maybe just a slightly smaller radius, but it shoots faster. You know, I don't know. Like it definitely needs to be tweaked. I mean, if they just implemented it like what, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, that new change. I don't even know how long it was, but I think it would need a bit more testing.
The thing that still worries me about late game TVP for Mech specifically is I feel there's still no counter. If Protoss gets up to a certain amount of like carriers, Tempest with High Templar, I feel like Mech still will die to that, regardless of tanks and Cyclones being changed. Like, what do you think would be the counter to that?
I mean, Terran has, you know, the most harass potential, you know what I mean? Especially in that phase of the game where, you know, we're just, you know, slow, clunky. All those units you just described are extremely slow and immobile, you know? So, you know, you have battle cruisers that are able to teleport without, you know, energy cost, without vision, without anything. Like,
oh, that's true. I forgot about that.
I mean, you guys have it good, you know, in the late game. I think, you know, it's very hard to kill those battle cruisers now. The fact that they remove the energy, I mean, at least, you know, those High Templar could, you know, use a few feedbacks, prevent a few Yamato cannons, you know, prevent you from maybe teleporting away, you know. But now it's like, yeah,
another change that I want to bring up is the Banshee change, which I think we all have kind of overlooked a little bit. But you don't have to, you don't need a fusion core anymore to research the Banshee speed upgrade. So that might change quite a bit in mid game, I guess. I don't
see Banshees much, so I wouldn't complain too much about that change. Since I don't see Banshees very, very much, like I don't know how much you use them rough or you use them Avilo, but I don't see them too much.
I use them a lot.
Okay.
I think it's actually going to be. It'll bring Banshees back. Like you'll be able to build like 4, and then they're going to be a bitch to deal with.
I used to use them versus Zerg, but then the Queen and Spore got OP.
Well, you use them against Protoss?
Now it doesn't work anymore.
Do you ever use it against Protoss, or?
I use them against Protoss. I actually
Not very often, but
So,
I
yeah,
do sometimes.
I feel
Yeah, so
they're the strongest unit right now in the current game. Like it's better to build Banshees than it is tanks against Protoss in general.
wow.
It's a really good tempo unit to use against Zerg, and usually you want to combo that with something like a Hellion run by. So if you use a Banshee on its own, and the Queens and the Spores can direct their attention to the Banshee, it seems like a pretty bad investment. But if there's like a 4 Hellion drive by in a base, and then 2 Banshees, like Avilo was saying, maybe with the speed upgrade, it'll be worth increasing your count to 4, because there's basically a window of how long you can make Banshees before mutas with Overlord speed come into play, because that's going to be the counter procedure to a pretty big group of Banshees that are harassing.
So,
But
Nero,
I think
what do you think about Mech overall against Zerg? Do you think you're going to see it more? Do you think it'll be imbalanced? What are your thoughts as a Zerg player?
I hope we'll see it more. I like playing against Mech. I think it's a nice change because it kind of prevents you from autopiloting. There are a lot of assumptions that you end up making just because the meta kind of stabilizes to the double medivac bio, and you'll just like do a build order that sets you up to deal with that, and then oh my god, it's Mech, like that's totally different, and I only see this 1 out of every 20 games. It would be cool if the Mech to bio was closer to 50-50, because it kind of forces you to think critically about what's happening and be like, all right, what's my opponent doing? I can't just assume it's going to be 3 bases of bio.
I think that's what they're trying to achieve as well. I don't think they want people to go pure bio or pure mech. I think they really want to see it all. You know, like they want those fights to look like the cinematics. You know.
Yeah. Speaking of bio, do you guys think we'll see? How do you guys think bio? Do you think bio? I see people saying bio is not going to be viable anymore. What do you think about that? You think you'll still see Terrans going bio against you guys, or?
Absolutely. I mean,
versus Protoss, yes.
Absolutely. As a Protoss, I would say absolutely. Anyways, I mean they have so much damage output, so much versatility.
Yeah, I feel like it's going to be kind of like as if you're playing a TVT or a TV Z from HOTS, where you can go one or the other. It was only, like I said, it was only toward the end where I was beating Protoss like all the time. Like I actually figured it out with Mech, but like nobody was doing it at the end of HOTS. I feel like it's going to be like that for Protoss. You can do one or the other, and it's going to be up to the Protoss to figure that out.
Yeah.
As for Zerg, I feel like I'm leaning more toward people are going to probably play Mech more. I feel like people are still going to go bio like in the beginning, and then they're going to realize, oh wow, the baneling is a little strong. Oh wow, if they get an infestor and it's burrowed, you know, my bio units are all fungled. I feel like they're slowly going to try to change the Mech, and maybe I'm curious to see how the Koreans are going to deal with the anti-air issue.
Yeah.
That's what I'm wondering.
I mean, the only way to deal with the whole lack of anti-air right now, at least against Zerg, is to get like Ghosts and Ravens, and then kind of just eventually get You kind of get like everything, and then
I feel like, yeah, but I feel like we're not going to really see those games right away. I still think it's going to be like bio with.
Oh yeah, definitely. It'll take a while.
With Muta, Bane kind of thing, because Koreans are kind of not to be mean or anything. Their mechanics are amazing, but they're very one-dimensional. Take Nero here, for example. I can see him using like the burrowed infestors with the fungals and stuff. That you know that, and I can see that. I could see like that abuse just like wrecking all bio. You know, there's players like that. Like Cats, for example, would do something like that. You know.
Yeah, it takes a little longer for the meta to catch on.
Once people figure that out, I feel like it's going to be easy peasy for Zerg with the bio stuff.
I think the bio versus Bane in the mid game is going to be pretty similar. Like it won't feel super different. One thing that Terran players opening with the Marine Medivac opener will have to worry about is
there will be a timing.
Yeah, big baneling attacks.
Have the speed.
They're going to be a lot harder to clean up just because they're going to have the combat shields by default. So if they go Hatch Gas Pool and Zerg goes Bane Nest with their next gas and keeps mining gas, that's going to be a big timing that Terran's going to have to figure out how to defend or change the build in some way.
But lots of times when a timing comes, they don't have the speed yet, so that can get any.
I think the reason for that change is that they don't want Terrans to just so so easily, hold against banelings with, just splits, right? And not use, let's say, Widow Mines and other splash damage things to hold them off. I think it's just, an incentive or a way to, get people to invest in,
Well, they used to
more
have the
tech to
tank,
defend.
the thing. Well, the tank back, I mean, to deal with
Yeah.
the baneling. Now they don't really have that, so
Mhm.
I'm curious, are they going to use Widow Mines now?
Exactly.
Okay. Trying to think. Do you guys? Is there anything that you want to bring up that you had on your mind in regards to the new patch? Otherwise,
I think it's covered.
yeah.
I think we covered most of the things. I mean, personally, I felt like a few things for Protoss weren't really noteworthy, like DT Blink. I still don't see how a Protoss with good War Prism micro is going to ever need that. I still don't.
It's not like it can be abused in the early game either, because
Exactly.
It is from the Dark Shrine. So normal DT timing, you can expect DTs, but they're not going to be blinking at least until like a minute and a half later, anyways. So it's not really anything to really be scared of or worried about.
Yeah,
Okay.
and the tank damage, and I still don't understand. I mean, yeah, you don't need to select the units, with the Cyclones anymore. But I really felt like they did not need a damage buff against the ground. I think it's gonna, really be a lot of mech against Protoss. Bio's still gonna be viable, but I think the mech is gonna be stupid strong. Like it's gonna force us to open up Stargate and nothing else. Basically,
Well,
that's how I feel
the
about
one thing for that is I think you just make more robos, and then you just literally you almost play like a Protoss version of mech, and you crank out like most of your army consists of like Immortals, Disruptors, and like Colossus, and then and then the air transition after that.
Well, exactly.
It might end up being like Wings of Liberty, like just a slow tank push with Marines.
That's what it's gonna look like. That's what it might look like, yeah. But Liberators are now into the mix, right? So you don't want to overcommit on Robos, right? You really don't. Like you make too many Disruptors all of a sudden. Liberators, there's 6 libs all of a sudden.
Ooh.
It's crazy.
They did buff the Void Ray, remember? They
made it faster, right?
Yeah, it's a little bit faster, so that might help a tiny bit, maybe.
It might, but if there are any Marines like sprinkled into the mix, it's already like not even an option.
I like how the default buff is to always make something faster. Every unit, Warp Prism, Void Ray,
Zealot.
Cyclone was faster. Everything. But all right, guys. I guess that was pretty damn good discussion. I hope people that are watching from my stream, Rough Stream, I hope you guys enjoyed. The plan is to have this, weekly. Talk about. I don't know if we're gonna be talking about patch changes every time. We'll probably be talking about like metagame shifts and all that. And so yeah, the plan is to do this again next week after the patch hits. Hopefully, I can have you 3 guys back on so we can talk. We can see what has actually happened with the game and how our games have gone. If we're crazy for thinking one way or the other. But
people are saying thank you in my chat to you guys for doing this, so it's they're happy.
Yep, no problem. If you guys want to really quick just do some shout-outs and plug your streams and whatnot, your Twitters.
Yep. With me, you can follow me at rough_SC2 for my Twitter, and then obviously my channel on Twitch is rough13. That's 13. I do crazy stuff, so definitely check that out. I'm sure a lot of your viewers already know who I am, though.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm gonna jump off here. It was fun, guys.
Take it easy.
See you later.
I linked my stuff in the chat. I'll be taking a week off for like holiday and family related stuff, so I'll probably be back Saturday of next week. But if anyone's interested in a Zerg stream that's also macro oriented, kind of like Avilo and Rough, then give me a follow, check it out. It's some pretty cool content. One of the things that I focus on is how to think about your emotional reaction to situations and kind of focus on what you can do better. But I'm really looking forward to the new patch. I think it's going to allow players to experiment and to find their own way rather than to just copy the most powerful builds and openings that are in the pro meta. So it should be good shit. And thanks for having me on the show. It's been fun.
Yep, no problem. Thank you for joining me. Thank you.
And finally, my stream is gosu_PvP. I actually have a website, gosupvp.com, so you guys can just check that out. No underscore on the website. And my Twitter is actually also gosu_PvP. I'm a Protoss player, guys. I keep it very educational on my stream. I try to help everybody out. For if you just watch my stream, you can get free coaching from me, free replay analysis from me. It's all free if you just tune in and watch and support. So once again, it's goes_PvP, guys. Big shout out to Avilo for inviting me. Very nice meeting Neuro and Ruff. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you, guys.
Yep, awesome. Thank you guys for joining in. Also, I want to do a personal shout out to to Chris.
And a shout out to the squad. Sorry.
I'm going to shout out Chris Clark from the BattleNet forums. He is the one that actually was the impetus for me starting this show with you guys and coming up with the idea, because I got banned from the BattleNet forums, guys, for making a post about Reapers, and they went ahead and this guy perma-banned me. And so I was just like, okay, well, I guess, you know, if they're going to try and censor me on the BNet forums for talking about Reapers, I'll do something constructive and, you know, get a discussion going with people in the community, create some content, get you guys some viewers too, get me some more viewers, get everybody, you know, everybody wins in this. StarCraft wins, and yeah, so shout outs to Chris Clark from the BattleNet forums for permanently banning me and getting me to actually, you know, do something and start, you know, a StarCraft show. And the last thing is, once again, guys, if you're listening to this, if you're here watching, next week gonna be doing the same thing. Like I said, hopefully I can get you guys back on, and yeah, we'll be. So tune in next week. I know that the view count, you know, we had like about 300 or so concurrents today. It's gonna be lower today because of the you know, Home Story Cups going on. So I'm hoping next week, you know, with all of our personalities and all of our discussions, we'll blow it out of the fucking water. Probably get up to, you know, 1K, 1.5K. I'm hoping, and more people will know about it too. So thank you guys, Gosu, Ruff, and Neuro for coming on and discussing this. And yeah, so
Great stuff, man. Thank you very much.
Memes.
Squad.
all right, man. Peace out, everybody.
Peace out,
Later.
boys.
All right, see you guys later. And I am going to cut up this, or not cut up this VOD, guys, but I will upload this to my YouTube. So hopefully you guys did enjoy this. And yeah, I think I'm going to, I'll probably stream in a moment here. You guys can just put comments in the chat, you know, whether you like the show or not. Hopefully you guys got something out of it. And yeah, just spread the word, guys, because this will be. I'm hoping to make this a weekly thing, so I hope you guys enjoyed it. Actually, I'm pretty sure Home Story Cup is still going on right now. Like I said, you know, 300 viewers, 300 concurrent for this is actually pretty good for. You know, almost zero advertisement. I only advertised this last week, so I'm pretty happy with that for the first week. Especially once again, we ran during a tournament, so I'm pretty optimistic for next week. But yeah, I'm gonna cut the VOD. I'll get back on stream in a little bit, guys. I'm gonna just get off stream right here, and yeah, I'll be back in, I'd say, approximately an hour. Something like that. I gotta go eat. But I'll tweet. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. Peace out, everybody.